With the introduction of YouTube and MMA, over the last couple of decades, there's been a lot of talk around transitioning from sport or traditional based karate through to application or Bunkai based karate. And today, I want to give you my top tips for doing just that. Tip number 5, study violence. You know, it's a lot easier to do today than it used to be. You don't have to go down the pub and start a fight to understand how violence works. Speak to law enforcement or security personnel and do your research on YouTube. It is not hard to see what works, what doesn't. There's also a lot of talk about using MMA, looking at the cage about what works and what doesn't. Now, we must understand that the cage is not self-defense, but it is aggressive resistance. And so it does give us a little bit of a hint as to what self-defense is like. You have to understand that kata is a byproduct. It is not what came first. In fact, what you used to do is learn how to navigate violence. You would first catalog the violence, create a response, test it under aggressive resistance, and then combine your solutions into a format that eventually became kata. Kata was the byproduct, the piece at the end that helped you remember the applications that you should have already learned. Don't try to reverse engineer. Instead, spend the time just understanding violence. So, work an act of violence. Let's say today we're going to work a hook punch, or today we're going to work a double-handed choke, or today we're going to work a bear hug. And research as many responses to that particular act of violence as you can. Catalog them in detail, and eventually over time you'll be able to take those applications and say, oh, well, that application for a double rear-handed grab looks exactly like High Nyondan, or that sliding collar choke looks exactly like Nai Hanchi. Over time, you'll be able to plug enough of those applications into the kata such that you don't have to reverse engineer. You don't have to go looking for the application and essentially put a square peg in a round hole. So that's my advice. Study violence first. Get a good grounding in how to navigate all different types of violence, from grappling and striking and ground and so forth. And then eventually, you'll see positions that look just like the kata, and you'll be able to plug those in. Tip number 6, apply lateral thinking. You know, when we look at kata, it's very easy to get caught up on little things like, is the fist this way or that way, or, you know, ippon ken, or is the thumb on top, or whatever it may be. Don't get caught up on the details. My teacher, Patrick McCarthy, he has a 5 impact theory. That means the 5 things you need to do for your strike to work. They are location, tool, angle, direction, intensity. Those are the 5. And when I am looking at kata, personally, I use that model with a slight variation to help me find the applications. They are location, tool, angle, direction, and timing. And what I find is that for me, I've created a personal rule that I can change any one of those things and it still remains true to the kata. So for example, a push, a reach for a hair grab, a poke in the eyes, a stab in the throat, anything where the hand moves in a linear fashion, for me, is the same thing as far as kata is concerned. It doesn't matter the tool that's attached to the end. So you can change any one of those 5 and it's still close enough for me to work for that kata. Because let's face it, at the speed at which violence happens, you can't tell the difference between a punch, a push, a shove, a grab, and so on and so forth. All you can see is an arm moving forward in a linear fashion. So those 5 again. Location. Where is the strike going? Is it in the throat, the eyes, the chest, etc., etc.? Tool. What's the tool using to impact that part of the body? Is it a foot? Is it the fingertips? Is it a fist? Is it a palm? Angle. What is the angle of that weapon in order to hit that target? For example, if it's in the throat, you can't go vertically, you need to go horizontally. So maybe that changes the application of the kata. Direction, the direction of travel from point A to point B. Does it come in from the side? Does it come down? Whatever it is. And last of all, timing. The 2 movements together is one after the other, so on and so forth. So what I want you to do is look at those and just change one of them. Just change one. So what happens if I change the angle of this? Can it fit in a different way? Or what happens if I do them together versus one at a time? Does it look like the cutter? And to me, that is enough lateral thinking so that you find the applications, however, not too much, because let's face it, there's a few that are a little bit wild out there and you have to use a lot of creative thinking to make them fit into the cutter. So that's my personal rule on finding cutter applications. You know, in our desire to find applications for all the cutter and reverse engineer those applications, I've seen some outlandish techniques that either A, would never work under aggressive resistance, or B, work under aggressive resistance, but they are just like the cutter. Like, there's no way that that's what the original pioneers intended. So, again, understand your why. Is that what you're trying to establish? What were the original pioneers after? Or are you just after some things that work under aggressive resistance and kind of look like the cutter? But if you are looking for something that was what the original pioneers intended, bear in mind that when it was in Okinawa, it was a simple art. It was not a highly complex art in a lot of ways. Keep it relatively simple. That doesn't mean you got to stick to the get under eye and the reverse punch. Sure, we can extend it beyond that, but some of the stuff I've seen out there where we do jumping, spinning, flying kicks, you know, they're not that practical for cutter for what it was back in old Okinawa. Here's the last tip, tip number 8, find a mentor. Like any other change you're trying to make in life, it's hard to do on your own. And you're going to make a whole bunch of mistakes. But if you can find a mentor that's going to help push you through that, bring you along and maybe shortcut some of those mistakes for you, that's going to be great. Now be really careful. There's a whole bunch of people out there that'll do anything for your money. Or even if it's not for money, sometimes people have a different agenda to what you're really looking for, and inadvertently they're going to drag you on their journey rather than yours. So be careful the mentor you choose, and the mentor you choose doesn't have to be the mentor for life, but certainly latch onto someone that you think can help you through this journey. Don't do it alone. There's organizations out there, there's Facebook groups, you could join the IRKRS who are dedicated to this cause, or a whole bunch of other groups that might be able to help you along the journey. So find someone that's going to help you along, and it'll make this journey a whole lot easier. So there you have it, guys. That's my 8 top tips for transitioning or not from modern / sport karate through to application-based karate. I'd like to give a shout out to Timo from Germany, who recently purchased my Kunkudai DVD and asked me this question: how would you make this navigation from here to there? So thank you very much, Timo, for the question. It prompted this video. And also for anybody who does have a question, please feel free to hit me up on email, Facebook or YouTube, and I'd be more than happy to do a video and talk about your particular question. So thanks again for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe or like the Facebook page, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.